Tucked away inside your nearest Sega Dreamcast, set up in the console's random access memory, there is a bar, a safe haven for guests and information to roam in, share a bit of their time, and go about their way. Welcome to Ram on the Rocks. I am your host, Wayne as Boss, and today I have a very cool guest coming on board. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, I am known for being a guest on this show. I think that's my highest prestige.
So John, you are one of the, I'm not entirely sure how to say it, like one of the hosts over at Good Vibes Gaming.
Yeah. So that's probably what I'm mostly known for.
Yeah.
I do a lot of videos over at GVG, a lot of Nintendo stuff, quite a few Sega things, a few Dreamcast videos. Just anything gaming, really. I was having a conversation with,
I don't remember if it was, because I think we've got a few mutual friends, actually, between, Brennan Hesse and Nick, the game apologist. And I remember talking about, one particular video that you put together about, how to actually set up your modern Dreamcast to the internet so you can still, enjoy a lot of those features.
Yeah, that was so fun to do. Did you experience Dreamcast Online in its prime, or did you miss out on that?
Sadly, I did not. Actually, that gets us into right into the first topic of discussion I wanted to tackle was our history with the Sega Dreamcast and how we got introduced to it. Would you like to take first point on that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it came out in 1999 in Europe and America. And I would have been 4 years old, but my sister's, there's one that's 6 years older than me, so she was around 10. And she got a Dreamcast for her birthday with Sonic Adventure and Pen Pen, and I think Super Magnetic Neo as well. Ooh. And she liked it, but she wasn't really into games. She had a Game Boy, she had the Dreamcast, but it never really clicked beyond just a game or two. And so as time went on, I just kind of took it for myself. And so Dreamcast was my first real home console, and what a system to start with. I loved Sonic Adventure to death. I think Tails' story was the first game credits I ever saw in my life.
Oh wow!
And and as time has gone on, I've loved going further and further into the library and seeing all the stuff that I missed, and it's just such an impressive little thing for what it achieved in a year and a half on the market.
Yeah, it really is just such an impressive console, and I've been enjoying, especially in recent years, kind of going back, and it feels like there's constantly something new to discover with the Dreamcast. Although I've been having kind of a similar experience with the Saturn, which is, I think, the unsung child of Sega's console repertoire. My experience with the Dreamcast was something kind of similar, but it wasn't owned within our household. I think for a time, some of the only gaming experience I had was playing arcade cabinets in the back of Pizza Hut, playing on a Game Boy, that sort of thing. It wasn't until I went to go visit family in North Carolina that my cousin brought over her Sega Dreamcast. And of course, Sonic Adventure was, the game that was with it. And I would have been. If that was 1999, it sounds like we're about the same age. I would have been 5. I'm not entirely sure what year exactly she had brought that over, but I was hooked immediately to Sonic Adventure, and I didn't want to put it down. Tails was the first one I beat. It was
very similar then.
Yeah. I think, weirdly enough, my favorite character, though, he might still be, at least for that game, was Gamma.
Oh yeah, Gamma rocked. Gamma is a much faster version of the mechs in Adventure 2, like Tails and Eggman. He's like those, but way faster. Has that time pressure, and I love making all the combos to make your time extend. Gamma's amazing.
Yeah.
I think most of the characters in that game are really good. Sonic's a lot of fun. Tails is fun to fly around with. Knuckles' treasure hunting levels, they're pretty fun. It's only really Big and Amy. But they're pretty short, so it doesn't even matter that much.
Yeah, that's my thing, is I always thought that they were... I don't want to say that the issues people had with them were overblown. I don't know if that's fair. But I personally never shared the same problem, and I actually like the fishing stages, but
I've grown to like them too, actually.
Yeah.
Growing up, it was like, why is there fishing in this fast-paced Sonic game? But it's not bad. And I've recently played Sega Bass Fishing for the first time. And honestly, I like that too.
Did you, I don't suppose you got your hands on one of the fishing rod controllers?
Oh yeah, I did.
Attaboy.
I did a Dreamcast video. I think it was earlier this year. It might have been late last year, where I just looked at a bunch of the library and what I think of it now. And I got a fishing rod because it works with Virtua Tennis for like Wii Remote style tennis play.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy. It works in Soul Calibur as well, but it's a bit janky there. But
So
I mainly got the fishing rod for Virtua Tennis, and then I had to try it in Sega Bass Fishing as well, and it's great.
yeah, the Soul Calibur thing I had actually heard about, and I still need to actually test that for myself. I've got the fishing rod, I've got like the arcade stick, and I still need to like actually do a little bit more with them. I was disappointed. I remember when I first got the fishing rod, because just on the internet and everything like that, I remember people always talking about how the big fishing stages were introduced to help sell the fishing rod peripheral. And it seems to me that's not the case at all, because the big fishing
doesn't use it.
Yeah, it doesn't support it. Like, so that's not true.
Yeah, absolutely bizarre. Yeah, it's crazy. Dreamcast was like really far ahead of its time when it came to that stuff, though, because there was a motion controller in the fishing rod that you pull up to yank the fish out the water. Samba de Amigo had motion controllers. Like there was a sensor bar that judges how far the maracas are off the ground. You got all those light gun games like House of the Dead. Like it was a haven for just pushing technology forward. Not to mention all those like arcade games at home at 60 FPS.
Oh,
what a time!
That was the thing, was it really was just bringing the Y2K arcade experience to the household. Very cool for its time. You can still plug in a Dreamcast, and I feel like you're still getting an experience you just can't quite get anywhere else. It's just not the same.
A lot of games still look really good as well. Like, you play Soul Calibur now, I can't imagine a single person saying this looks dated, because it looks smooth, it runs smooth, and yet to this day the animations, the models, the backgrounds, they all look absolutely gorgeous. And then you've got all those blue sky Sega games, like Sonic Adventure is an example, but then there's also Crazy Taxi. You've got stuff like Daytona USA. So many really just colorful and very easy to vibe with games.
Another game that especially once I started getting into capturing footage and looking into how to get like best output out of like the original hardware itself, one of the games that impressed me the most visually was Echo the Dolphin.
Oh, sure.
Something about like the water. Games didn't look like that back then. Like, yeah, I don't know what they did.
I like what you said about getting best output as well, because Dreamcast supports VGA. Yet a pure 480p in a time when most consoles were stuck at 240p. A lot of them didn't go above S-Video, and then you suddenly get this lossless format, and it's still the best way to get footage out of a Dreamcast.
Yeah, I have to look up the brand for it. I did recently pick up an HDMI box for the Dreamcast that basically uses VGA video to just output it straight to HDMI. It's not that far off from the Eon like GameCube HDMI box. And I've been using it. I haven't had any trouble with it, and it looks fantastic. And yeah, games for this system, it's so wild to me how they still look this good.
I was saying earlier, a few 60 FPS games as well, which was quite rare then. And one of my favorite platforms of all time is Rayman 2, and the Dreamcast version has a 16:9 option for widescreen. It runs at 60 FPS the entire time. It's a future game. Like, the games just didn't do that.
That was one of the first games I tested with the HDMI box. Was
nice.
that looks like what you would get out of like a modern like HD port on a like on the PS5 or something. Like, it looks so good.
It does. It's the best version of that game. performance-wise and also in content, because there's those Glowbox Village mini games that aren't in the other versions.
Yeah.
There's still no better Rayman 2 than that.
That's I remember because you were saying like there were some 60 FPS games. I remember I actually specifically got I did since decide I'm just gonna try to get the entire North American library of Dreamcast within my lifetime. I've got some of the heavy hitters out of the way. I've got my MVC2, I've got my Illbleed, so I've got some of the hard ones. But like one of the ones I got specifically for the Dreamcast was Miss Pac-Man Maze Madness, because that's the only version of that game that runs at 60 FPS.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I kind of want to get that too.
Yeah, best of my knowledge anyway. Which that's a neat little game. I actually kind of like what they did with that.
Yeah, a cool game is Puyo Puyo Fever. So that released in 2004, which is like 3 years after it got discontinued. And that's a multi-platform game. So it's on, in America, it's on GameCube. In Europe and Japan, it's on PS2 and Xbox and PC. But Sega published a Dreamcast version in 2004, and it's the same as all the other ones. It's got English toggle as well. But what's special about it is if you go in the options, you can install a VMU image, and then when you go onto the Dreamcast home screen, you press the start button, and it all goes into this like Super Smash Brothers kind of camera where you can move the menu around, and it's all 3D with 3D models.
Yeah, what?
It doesn't sound real, does it?
No, it doesn't. What?
I'm not making this up.
That sounds awesome. I gotta look into this.
Yeah. It's crazy. But yeah, that release, 3 years after the Dreamcast was discontinued, and had this crazy extra menu that you can play with.
Oh, that's so cool. One game in particular that I was actually, I think I reached out a while ago, but I think we were both busy, and I just don't think it worked out. One game that I was trying to figure out, because I think it was in the background when you were doing the the video about hooking it up, the Dreamcast up to the internet. I saw it in the background, and I needed it so bad, and that's the Dreamcast. Somebody made like a custom Dreamcast port of Cave Story.
Yeah.
Which,
how crazy is that?
I finally found it last night. I was just like, what if I just Googled this? And I looked it up and I found a Shopify listing for it, and I was just like, oh, there it is. It's like $20. Yeah, I'll go ahead and order that. I'm very excited to give that a shot.
So are you a big Cave Story fan too then?
Actually, the first game review I ever put together on my channel long time ago while I was still in college was a review of Cave Story Plus for the Switch.
I love that. Amazing. It's cool on the Dreamcast because the disc, the iconic Dreamcast, like when it's loading something.
Yeah.
That's all over the place in Cave Story. So when you just enter a door, it pauses for a moment and goes.
That makes me so happy.
There's something endearing about that.
I remember that was one of the first things. I did an overhaul on the motion graphics package for my my channel, and one of the things that I decided to do was like, hey, if I was reviewing something that had a bunch of spoilers, I would have what's essentially like a spoiler loading screen, and there'd be a little icon that spins in the background, and it'll slow down at points, and when it slows down, you hear the Dreamcast like disc whirring. Because I threw that in there, because that to me is iconic.
Oh, it is. It's part of the system. There's people who've taken out their disk drive and replaced it with SD cards, and I respect it, but I can't imagine playing my Dreamcast without the disc whirling.
That's my thing. I have a couple of Dreamcasts. I've got one that I'm like, when the laser dies on that, maybe I'll toss a GD EMU in that, but I'm not in a hurry to, because to me that's just missing out on part of the experience.
Right. Now that's an interesting part too. There's a lot of Dreamcast that if you emulate it, like you can still play the games, but you kind of miss out on the tangibility of the hardware. The controller's very specific, but so is the VMU.
Yeah.
Not that many games use it as like a gameplay mechanic, but in Virtua Tennis, you can play the entire game on that VMU. So if you look down, you've got just a very simple calculator-looking version of Virtua Tennis, which mirrors what's on the TV. So you can look down and just play it entirely on there if you want to.
That is so cool.
Yeah, Sonic Shuffle, though, I think is the best example of it there. I hear that game called poor a lot of the time, and it's not great. It's not the best party game ever, but I think a lot of people emulated it and missed the VMU mechanic. So when you're playing multiplayer, everybody gets their own screen. So you need 4 controllers with 4 VMUs in each one, a VMU in each one, I should say. And it tells you like personal data, like what cards you have, and that stuff just isn't on the TV. So you've got to use both screens, kind of Wii U style.
That's, God, yeah, they really were just doing what no one else did at that time.
Yeah.
I love that. The VMU alone is such a cool little device. I've been trying to collect a bunch of the different variants of that. I've got almost all the North American ones except for that, like, the yellow.
Yeah.
But I do also have, I got my hands on the aqua blue, I think that was Japan exclusive, controller and VMU set, and man, those are gorgeous.
Oh yeah, they're all absolutely gorgeous. I grew up with the standard white one and then the red one, and I think those are the main 2 I had growing up. I've got a bunch of others. They're mostly just generic colors, but yeah, it's fun to collect them. Growing up, I think the only VMU game I really played was Chow Adventure. Like you get like it's very similar to Sonic Advance's Chow Garden for those who haven't played it. Like you get that kind of snap mini game. You get to see the stats on your Chow, because in the GameCube version, when you feed your Chow, it tells you like its swimming stat, its flying stat. That's all in the VMU mini game on Dreamcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a funny extension of the game. But there's a ton of VMU mini games out there.
Yeah, and like even just speaking of like just trying to collect all of those different variations of stuff, like I know one that I'd love to get my hands on is, I want to say it was Sakura Wars, had one that had a very nice like wood grain kind of effect on it.
Oh yeah.
That one's pretty. There was one in particular that I had to hunt down. My favorite color is orange, and I try to collect as many consoles as I can in that color. I just recently completed my set for the GameCube, so I've got the 4 controllers, the Game Boy player, the box for the system and everything. Like, I've got all that set. But the Dreamcast was a little tougher, because there was a clear orange Dreamcast controller produced, but only in Japan and only through a box set for Choo Choo Rocket.
Oh.
Yeah.
How specific.
I did get my hands on it though, not as expensive as I would have expected, if only because like Japan imports for a lot of those things really are not, it feel like they're not as hard to find. But I did also pair it up with, I did do like a custom shell swap on my main Dreamcast. If I can find it real quick, I'll show it to you, just to kind of keep it all looking nice.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, here we go. I'll send that over into the Discord, and I'll just have to remember to
amazing.
show that.
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah, the Dreamcast aesthetic is very much all over my channel, so the channel logo is, I'm sure you can tell what game inspired that. But it's been fun to just like track down a bunch of this stuff and see how hard they were going into that, and especially in Japan. Like, I love the Y2K like clear colored plastic aesthetic. Like that's something I miss.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's, there's a lot of you can't fit much on a VMU. So like back in the day, if you put Chow Adventure on there or something, you could fit like 2 more save files, and that was kind of it. So you really need to stack up on these VMUs. And I guess this links to online play. There was DLC on the Dreamcast, so you could download like extra missions or themes or characters or whatever else, and that's also going to take up a huge chunk of your VMU. And a lot of this stuff is still being discovered now. A lot of this stuff is still being preserved, but it relies on people just dumping their VMU files. So it relies on people having this stuff on their VMUs downloaded from like 25 years ago now. And it's wild, but people have made a real effort to take all this DLC stuff and keep it active. and you can just download it now by plugging your Dreamcast to the internet and getting it in the original method, which is bonkers.
It's so cool. And I think the first I ever heard of that was people going out of their way to actually preserve the servers for Phantasy Star Online.
Yeah.
And I remember being amazed to hear that. Something that I still want to play for myself. I've got it, and I've got like the keyboard and everything. And you can play it offline, but I still want to try to get the whole internet set up and actually experience like what playing online is like for that game.
Yeah, there's a few ways you can do it. There was the LAN adapter, which can be used for a couple of games, but for real flexibility, you're going to need a Raspberry Pi, which then basically emulates dial-up by converting it to regular Ethernet. So it's a bit of you need a few accessories to be able to do it, and it's a bit of a process. But once you're in there, you can just suddenly play like the bulk of Dreamcast's online library as if it were 1999. And Phantasy Star Online's super interesting because people are still playing it all the time. But the lobby itself has cross-play with GameCube and PC and Xbox. The missions don't. So missions are basically just Dreamcast in isolation, but you can just chill out with people on like 4 other systems.
Huh. I didn't know
which
that.
Which is wild. Yeah, we did a little video about it, just chilling out with everyone. So we had a GameCube, we had a Wii, which, that's GameCube as well, Wii U, which is also GameCube, and then Xbox, PC, and Dreamcast just chilling out together. You can't do a whole lot, but you can message each other. You can play like that little football mini game in there. But if you want to play actual missions, you got to stick to respective consoles. But it's still really active, though. I found strangers on there. I wasn't setting up play sessions. There's just people playing Phantasy Star Online, even though it released 26 years ago.
Yeah. That's dedication right there, too. I think that's why I've always been intimidated by that game to a certain degree, because I'm like, if people are still going so ham on this, like, how much content is there? But then I have to remember, like, with MMOs, people are just going and replaying with new save files all the time, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm intimidated too. So I didn't grow up with Dreamcast Online, but we had dial-up in our house, but my Dreamcast was never in proximity to a modem, so I could never just plug it in. So I missed out on that, and then I didn't get to experience it until around a year ago with the Raspberry Pi setup. But it's so cool, though. I downloaded all the Sonic Adventure DLC, so I got like the Christmas themes, the New Year themes. I played Choo Choo Rocket online, which is bonkers.
Yeah.
I love Choo Choo Rocket. That was one where I had to set up a session because there weren't just people playing Choo Choo Rocket. Sadly, there should be, but there weren't. But there's more. There's an online Tetris game. You can play Daytona USA online. You can play Unreal Tournament online. It's wild how much people still play actively online on this thing.
That is awesome too, especially it is a shame that there aren't more people playing Choo Choo Rocket, because that is like a legitimately fun and very unique multiplayer experience, but also just like as a piece of game development history, like that was, if I'm not mistaken, that was what like Sonic Team was using to test the online functions that would later be used for Phantasy Star Online. Right,
exactly. Yeah, Sonic Team were on fire in that era too. Like, it was Sonic Adventure, Choo Choo Rocket, Phantasy Star Online. They just kept pumping out hit after hit.
Yeah, I know one, especially with like the DLC stuff, it's so wild to hear about that now, because I don't think that even the Dreamcast was the first time that they did that, but it was definitely the first time they did it on that level.
Because Saturn had something, right?
Saturn had something, was it SegaNet?
Yeah.
I don't quite remember the term for it. I remember it goes pretty far back, and I believe y'all on GVG actually recently did a video about, I could be mixing some stuff up, but about the old Famicom like online functions.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, there's some really cool things that were being done on hardware you wouldn't expect. But Dreamcast was just that window into the future. Then that you've got online, you've got motion controls, you've got 2 screens. It's just everything done at once while being ultra powerful. I mean, it didn't even fail on its own merits, really. Like when you think about all its surrounding factors, Dreamcast sold really well. In fact, in its launch, it was really what they were doing prior that kind of doomed it.
And I think, like, as cool as the Sega Saturn as a system is, I do think that it did have a hand in kind of spelling the Dreamcast's downfall, or you can kind of just say Sega's in terms of how they fit into the console-making market at the time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of spinning plates at that point. So after, Sega CD, 32X, Saturn, Dreamcast, it was all a pretty small window between all those systems, which doesn't instill the most confidence.
Yeah.
But Dreamcast wasn't doing badly. I think its past just kind of caught up with it.
And I think, especially nowadays, it feels like more and more there's so much more reverence for the Dreamcast. Like, a lot of people remember it, and they remember it fondly. There's a personality and an attitude there that you don't quite get from all the plain smooth boxes that all our systems are today. And I don't like being the guy that's just like, oh, gaming ain't what it used to be, like, yada yada. There's an amazing stuff going on in the game industry nowadays. But, it doesn't mean we can't appreciate, like, the uniqueness of what this was doing for its time.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be that guy a little bit, though. Because when you look at the first-party output of Dreamcast, Sega had so much. Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi, Sonic Adventure, House of the Dead. It was just endless hit after hit for what's basically a year of the system's life. And they put out so much in that year. And obviously, games have become way more expensive. They take way longer to make.
Yeah.
But you compare that 1 year of output to, like, PS5 or Series X, first-party-wise, and it's not even comparable. It's not even comparable to their entire lifespan, really. They just had so much being put out there. And it's wild, but, times have changed, but they couldn't slow down.
Yeah, it really did feel like you could kind of feel, I don't want to say desperation from that time period, but you could definitely feel like they were trying really hard because they didn't have any other choice. And the constant output, the way things were all marketed to stand out so hard, and then again, it really is just like you got unique experiences out of the Dreamcast library, the sort of things that probably just wouldn't fly or even get greenlit today unless you're looking strictly at the indie market.
Right, most were new IPs. Like, outside of Sonic and Echo, what was a Mega Drive and a Saturn IP from Sega? Not a whole lot.
Yeah. I do know, like, one of, kind of going back to, like, getting into the DLC and everything, one of those, I do need to get set up kind of going for that, because I am going to be looking at something later this year where I do want to talk about some of the downloadable content, and that would actually be a game I didn't know had downloadable content. That was Skies of Arcadia.
I was thinking the exact same thing, yeah. That had, like, downloadable islands, I believe.
Yeah, and I think that they were made available in the GameCube version, but I am going to be doing some very heavy comparison between the two versions just because I'm a Dreamcast version believer with that particular game, but I'll get into why in the actual review.
Sure. Yeah, I've only played it on Dreamcast, so I have no love for the GameCube version, but I hear they made the random encounters a bit nicer there, but I also hear the audio quality is better on Dreamcast, and I don't want to diminish that audio quality. It's
one of my favorite soundtracks to an RPG.
Yeah.
And it, like, even kind of going back and doing some recent footage testing, just the Pirate Hideout theme, you compare those between the Dreamcast and the Legends release, and it is distracting. I'm sure a lot of GameCube fans are sick of hearing it too, where they like grew up with the Legends port and they're tired of hearing about like how much better the Dreamcast version is. I get it, but those complaints exist for a reason.
They've got to accept the truth.
Yeah.
And I think this is true for a lot of Dreamcast ports, is that most of them are still best on Dreamcast. Sonic Adventure got fixed a lot on PC with a bunch of fan patches, but that vanilla version is not comparable to Dreamcast. And then Skies of Arcadia, I'd say House of the Dead 2 is still best on Dreamcast.
Oh, yeah.
Shenmue, I'd say, is best on Dreamcast. There's a lot of stuff. Like, I can't think of that many games that I would say are just kind of better elsewhere. Like, Crazy Taxi, I guess the PS2 and GameCube versions are fine, but after that you lose the offspring, so you got to stick in that era at least.
Yeah, I don't know if you got a chance to see, if you tune in for Games Done Quick very often.
I saw their Crazy Taxi segment.
That was awesome. I loved what they did with that.
It's so fun. Yeah.
Oh, that was because I've thought about it. It's just like, oh, I would love to stream some Crazy Taxi, but that's gonna get real dicey real quick.
Yeah.
And so like they found the perfect solution to get around that. That was a ton of fun.
Yeah, that was really, really good. Yeah, I think as time's gone on, I've played most of the Dreamcast stuff that I want to play, but there's always a few gems that turn their head. And I've started exploring the Japanese side a little bit. So I played Ikaruga growing up on the GameCube, but that debuted on the Dreamcast, and I played the Dreamcast version pretty recently. It's what you'd expect it to be. It's Ikaruga, but it's just so cool that it was a Dreamcast game originally.
See, I didn't realize that about Rez. I did not know that was originally a Dreamcast version before it came to PS2.
Right, and that's now super expensive to find.
Yeah, which is a shame because now I want it, but
that's the way things go, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, hey, I know we live in an age where stuff's getting easier and easier to emulate, but I like having this stuff. I like playing it on original hardware, and I like experiencing it kind of in the way that it was originally like put out there. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I'm the exact same. There's just something so real about feeling that Dreamcast controller. And by the way, the controller, it did analog triggers before any other console. Although, did Saturn have analog triggers? It may have. Saturn's 3D controller may have.
I think that the 3D controllers, they definitely like squeeze in like the analog. Don't know in terms of like if they're coded for that kind of input or how many games really took advantage of that.
Right.
But they did have those like analog style triggers on the 3D control pad.
But regardless, Sega were doing it first. And so in Crazy Taxi, you get like that full range of acceleration on the trigger. And that's something PlayStation 2 wasn't doing. Xbox did it, and GameCube did it. But yeah, Sega were ahead of the curve with that one. And you've also got the analog stick has a Hall effect, so it can't drift in the same way as other sticks. So they were packing so much in there.
Really, just ahead of the curve on so many things. I've definitely I've tried like a couple of different variations of Dreamcast controllers over the years, but my thing is I have what I call the Crazy Taxi test, because like there's all these different maneuvers that you can use in Crazy Taxi. One that will give you like a sudden burst of speed. And there's a way to do it where like you go into reverse and then you like hit the gas and accelerate at the same time. It's a little bit roundabout. It's not that complicated. But on an original Dreamcast controller, you can literally just like mash the the gas and the forward at the same time and just instantly get that. And it just saves time and like thought. And I have yet to find a third-party controller that can do that. It only works with an original Dreamcast controller.
I had that thing growing up where I had 4 controllers. 3 of them were official, and one of them was just this bulky thing that went to the last person who grabbed it, I guess. And that person always felt like they were at a disadvantage. We played a lot of Choo Choo Rocket growing up, and yeah, that controller would just have a bunch of misinputs, whereas the other ones just felt perfect, like all the time.
Yeah, and I know people. I have seen people kind of goof on the design of the controller. I personally find the Dreamcast controller to be incredibly comfortable. Maybe that's nostalgia, but I just fits in my hand. Like it just feels right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have many problems with it. I guess my biggest problem is, like, first, the analog stick can be a bit slippery. There's not a whole lot of grip on there. But also, there's a lot of room for a second analog stick, and maybe it was just too late. Like the DualShock wasn't that. DualShock's pretty young at that point. But you've got games like Half-Life, which were finished for the Dreamcast, but were unreleased. And if you play the unreleased version of that, it's a little hard to move around. They made it so the face buttons move and the analog stick turns. So having dual sticks would have done a lot for that. But you can plug in a keyboard and mouse as well, which is an even better way to play it.
Oh, I need the mouse. I've got I think I've actually got an inbox. I do. Of the Dreamcast keyboard, but I need the mouse to go with it.
Oh, nice, yeah. I've got the keyboard too, and no mouse. I feel like I need to get that in as well.
I feel like we need to just like raid Uncle Derek's stash. I'm sure he's got some.
Yeah, he's got plenty.
But the thing with like especially shooters and everything, because even recently I just kind of like popped onto a stream and I popped in Fur Fighters because that was a game I hadn't played since I was a kid. And trying to get in tune with those controls now is difficult when you're so used to how dual analog works for shooters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, trying to do that for Half-Life I feel like would be a bit of a pain, which is sad because like you said that there was like an unofficial like fan version of that, or was it like a decompilation?
Oh, so Half-Life is official. It was meant to release, and for some reason it just didn't. So it's finished. It's completely finished. It's done by Valve. I think Gearbox did the port itself. And I think their reason for not releasing was just changing market conditions. But someone from the company just put the ISO up online like 3 years after it was meant to release. So you can play the fully finished Dreamcast Half-Life, and it's not a fan thing.
That's actually really cool. I'm sure people have they've burned that onto discs at this point.
Oh yeah, you can play it officially on the Dreamcast. Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna have to find out a copy of that too. But that first Half-Life, I'm an outlier. I've actually never finished Half-Life 2. The first one is my favorite. Okay, that doesn't make sense to say. The first one is the one that I've actually finished and the one that I really liked, but I had a hard time getting into the second one for some reason. So
I don't think I've heard that before. It's always like Half-Life 2 is my favorite. I've not finished Half-Life 1. That's what I always hear.
I feel insane because like I only played Half-Life 1 because I wanted to play Half-Life 2 and see what all the hype was about. And I was like, oh, well, I should really just play the first one first. And I absolutely loved it. And so I was super excited for the second one. I just did not get into it. And I don't know why. It has been a while, though. I'm sure, like, going back now, I would enjoy it just fine.
Yeah. I love both of those games. Half-Life 1 has such a distinct vibe to it, though. And the Dreamcast version, it's a little bit stapled together. The frame rate isn't great, but they also threw in a bunch of load screens. So basically,
okay, yeah.
So it loads a lot more often than it does on PS2 and PC. So in that trolley segment at the beginning, there's like 10 load screens.
That sounds about right. I mean, Half-Life. We're talking about like how impressive the Dreamcast was just as a machine. Half-Life was also just like as a piece of software was unparalleled for its time. I am sad that we didn't get. I think I saw recently somebody was putting together a port of the original Tomb Raider over to the Dreamcast. And I think that they would like to do that for the other ones that didn't make it over there. My understanding, though, is that the original, like the first 3, used a different engine than Last Revelation and Chronicles did. So I don't know what challenges are coming in with that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, there's been a lot of ports of Tomb Raider 1 through, I think it's called OpenLara, which they use to port things. But growing up, The Last Revelation was my first Tomb Raider, and that was on Dreamcast. I think that's still my favorite one, to be honest. Just like a really advanced one. And it's another instance of the Dreamcast version just kind of being the best one for many years. You can probably argue it still is the best one.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to that one. I only recently, finally got myself to play through the first Tomb Raider for the first time, and I loved it so much that I immediately popped it in and played it a second time. That was one of those where I had a hard time getting into the controls for the longest time, but once you're meeting it where it's at and you're understanding what the design mentality was, especially for its era, I would not choose any other control style. I think it works perfectly for the kind of game they were setting up there.
I love hearing that, yeah. Because Tomb Raider is definitely a game you need to learn. It controls very tanky. It's not as smooth as you might expect, but once you understand how that's kind of to its favor, it's very purposeful in how it moves. So you really have to learn it. But once you understand that, I think you can adore Tomb Raider.
I totally... Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
Last Revelation, I think, is just the pinnacle of that era.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying that one out. It is fun though, seeing people taking a lot of games that came out around that era and like trying to make like Dreamcast ports of them. The first Tomb Raider is a funny one, if only because that wasn't necessarily Dreamcast era, and that had a Saturn port, kind of notorious one. But because I think, and I could be misremembering some of the history on this, the Saturn port I don't think was originally planned, or it was. And then Sega was mandating they wanted like a timed exclusivity window for the Saturn version, but they couldn't push the dates back on the other one, so they had to rush out the first one, or for the Saturn version, and it came packed in with just a lot of problems.
Yeah, it's a very different version because Saturn's 3D capabilities weren't strong, so it relies on 2D a lot. I think that version of Tomb Raider uses a lot more two-dimensional stuff rather than full-on 3D polygons. It's like a mix of both. So it's a weird jamble version, but yeah. But I guess it led to Tomb Raider continuing on Sega after that, though.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I do think that the second and third did get skipped, but the last two of that like PS1 era did make it on there. Although sadly, Angel of Darkness did not.
Yeah, not to get off topic of Dreamcast, but Saturn had quite a lot of games that you kind of think of as PlayStation games, like Symphony of the Night, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider, Wipeout, like all those, like they're all multi-platform. Yeah,
which actually I didn't even realize until recently that there was a Saturn port of Symphony of the Night. That was something I found out like this year. I think there was also like, what was it? There was a Saturn port of Snatcher that I'm also kind of interested in looking into.
Oh, yeah. I want to try the Saturn version of Police Knots, because I've played Snatcher on Sega CD, but Police Knots is one that it's always evaded me. I need to get that fan translation on a disc and just try it out sometime.
I recently actually got my hands on a physical copy of Snatcher for the CD. I don't want to talk about how much I spent on that, but I did finally get my hands on that and was able to play it on original hardware. And man, like you said, not to get too off topic, but that is such a cool game. Police Knots is definitely something I would love to try.
Snatcher's vibe is unreal. That soundtrack is incredible. And I got very lucky with my physical version. I went on Gumtree. I'm not sure if that's a thing in America, but Gumtree is just a secondhand website. And someone listed Sega with Capture. So no one else was seeing this, and they listed it at like £150. And it was a Sega CD with like 7 games. So there's like Earthworm Jim CD, there was Road Avenger, there was Night Trap, and Snatcher. So I paid like a really small amount for all of that.
Yeah.
And then got Snatcher on top of it.
That's so cool. Did you get a chance to play it with the Justifier?
Recently I did, yeah. I played that with a controller to begin with, and I got in a really big light gun phase last year, where I was playing like Duck Hunt, I was playing Time Crisis, and that was the time to try the Justifier with Snatcher. And the battle system definitely makes a whole lot more sense with that Justifier.
Especially there was like one shootout section, I think in the final area, where like, man, my thumbs are ready to bleed on the...
Oh yeah, it's made for a light gun.
Oh yeah. Oh man, actually, if we want to talk light gun games, because the Dreamcast was a haven for that too.
Yeah, I mean the main one that I played on Dreamcast was House of the Dead. House of the Dead 2 is just one of the best in the genre, man. It's so well paced, it's so fun. That's one of my go-tos in the arcade. Time Crisis and House of the Dead, they're both just my mains. But the Dreamcast version, it basically is the arcade version.
Yeah. I'm not sure if the term arcade perfect would be appropriate, but I mean, it feels like it.
Pretty much, yeah. I need to get a second light gun, though, for that, because I feel like House of the Dead 2 is best with 2 people. Sometimes you can get quite chaotic. You kind of need 2 people. But you can also use it as, like, dual wielding, like holding a light gun in both hands and just like, firing away at zombies.
I had a great experience. We've got a little barcade not that far from where I live, and they've got a House of the Dead 2 cabinet over there. So there was one night I was over there with just like a beer in one hand and the gun in the other, just shooting zombies. Great time.
Yeah, that's living the dream.
Oh, yeah. I think there were a couple of others for the... I keep mixing up the names. I want to say Death Crimson was the name of another light gun game for the Dreamcast.
So I've got to explore a few more of those. But I think, yeah, Death Crimson sounds very familiar there.
Yeah, because I think that was a Saturn game, and it got, like, a sequel for the Dreamcast, and I think that they were both, like, arcadey light gun shooters. And I would just love to... Like, I've got... I don't know if you know about the situation, like, in the States with the light gun, or if it was the same over there in Europe.
Oh, about it needing to be, like, not looking entirely like a gun? You're kind of like, because I know the Zapper had to become orange.
Yeah. Oh, Is there an orange one?
Yes, I think it started as grey, but I think because of law enforcement, it looked too much like a gun, so they had to make it look like a toy gun by making it orange later.
Well, I'm going to be looking into that later. So, we actually did get a gray one over here in the States, but it was produced by a third-party distributor called Mad Catz. And they,
oh, right.
Yeah, and I think, and again, I could be wrong, because you know how information spreads on the internet, but my understanding was that they actually had the Japanese, like, Dreamcast light gun is compatible with the hardware for the Dreamcast. Like, the American system will recognize the light gun and it can operate. It's the games that, like, lock out the use of the Japanese peripheral because, like you said, I think it looks too much like an actual gun.
Oh, interesting. We've got an official Dreamcast light gun in Europe. It's not that gun looking though. It's you can slide your VMU into it, but it looks, I don't know what the best way to describe it is. It's pointed like a gun, but it just doesn't resemble the barrel of a gun much at all.
Oh, that's fascinating. I think around the time, at least here in America, like, part of the reason why they got that got to be a problem was, I think what I read was around the time they were getting ready to release the peripheral, we had one of the larger like university or like school shootings, and so the idea, and of course, like, the using video games as a scapegoat for that to place blame and responsibility is very strong, and so the light guns were one of the first things to get targeted of, like, okay, no, we got to change the design of this. And the Mad Catz one here in America definitely looks more like a Star Trek phaser than it looks like the actual, like, Japanese light gun. So it's one of those things where it's just like, man, I get it. Especially it's like it's hard to place a lot of blame when it's if it is tied to what was just a tragic event. But it is always just been very strange to me that it's the hardware does work, but the games will lock out the ability to use that peripheral.
That's super interesting. Yeah. Wild.
And again, I would welcome more research on that because, just reading articles on the internet, I try to be more wary of that these days because I've definitely spouted some things that I've read before that turned out not to be true later.
It is, yeah. It's strange to think that sometimes people on the internet just don't research stuff. Wow.
Yeah.
We've all fallen for it every now and then.
It happens, and it's especially with, like, I want to say especially within the gaming sphere, there's a lot of just myths, and there's a lot of just, like, gaming legends that we just pass down through the generations that we find out later on had no base in reality whatsoever.
Yeah. There was a really cool one that sounds real about, this is off topic again, this is about Metal Gear Solid 3D. So, in the 3DS version of Metal Gear Solid 3, there's this myth that once Snake loses his eye and gets the eye patch, that the game no longer becomes 3D anymore and becomes 2D. And I believed it, because I played that game. I didn't remember it being 3D the whole thing. So, like, oh yeah, that sounds like something Kojima would do.
Oh yeah.
But then I played it for a video, and that's just simply not the case.
I almost wish they did that.
Yeah, like 3D is on the entire time. It's on when you're in first person. It's on in the cutscenes. It just doesn't disable. But everyone believed that was the case, even though you can just prove it by playing it.
Sure.
But it was just sort of commonly accepted that 3D went away when you lose your eye.
That's fascinating. Because I remember hearing about that rumor, but I don't think I looked too deep into it. But that is, you're right, such a Kojima thing to do, although I don't think he was involved with the development of that version.
No, I don't think so. But yeah, that would have been so smart. I think it's better to live on believing that's true, because it's just cooler that way.
Listen, there are shop fronts available on the 3DS. It'd be cool if somebody made a patched version of that had that being the case. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. Well, my to bring it back to Dreamcast, my 3DS home theme is the Dreamcast one. And when you bring it out of sleep mode, it does the Dreamcast VMU beep. So when you don't have any battery left in it, it just goes beep.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I love that.
And I think they used the lobby music from Phantasy Star Online.
They did.
Yeah, because I bought that when they first released it. I bought that theme and I kept that one there for a while. And I did think the disc reading and the VMU beeping was the funniest thing that they could have added into that.
But no, it's also iconic though. Even Nintendo embraced it.
Oh yeah. That is actually, you mentioned earlier, because while I did never get to experience the online functions of the Dreamcast, because again, it wasn't mine, and nobody in our house was paying for internet to play video games, at least at the time. I never got to experience what downloadable themes and stuff were like for the Dreamcast menu. What are those like?
So for the Dreamcast menu itself, I haven't actually explored that stuff yet. That's something I need to get further into. No, I can't answer that, but I can tell you that for certain game DLC though, it's wild to see these games you grew up with expanded. So on GameCube for Sonic Adventure, you have different characters that you can put onto the menu, so you can have Eggman saying choose a stage and all that, and you can just download it on Dreamcast, and then that becomes permanent on there. Yeah, and all that stuff is crazy. It doesn't feel like we didn't get that stuff until I guess Xbox, which had a hard drive in there. So the fact they just fit on a VMU is wild.
I have often kind of said that to me the original Xbox felt somewhat like a spiritual successor to the Dreamcast. Although I guess if you're looking at it in reality, and Brendan and I had this conversation, you can kind of attribute a lot of the Dreamcast's legacy into all three of those consoles that came out around the time, even to the PS2, which some would argue kind of killed the console. I don't know if I agree with that. But if we're talking library and stuff like that, sure, you had a lot of carryover from those systems, just looking at Phantasy Star and Skies of Arcadia on GameCube, or Panzer Dragoon and Jet Set Radio Future on Xbox, Space Channel 5 on PlayStation 2, which Space Channel 5 is one of the most Dreamcast games in existence.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'll say Sonic Riders is a very Dreamcast-coded game, I feel.
Oh, I would agree.
More so than Heroes.
Yeah. I think I liked Sonic Riders more as a kid because it felt closer to... I go back to the word attitude a lot. There was there's a bit of an edge to the Dreamcast stuff. It felt like it was kind of going towards that teenage demographic at the time. And I think Sonic Heroes, when I was at that age when it came out, I didn't like it as much because it didn't feel like it was targeted towards teenagers. It felt like it was targeted towards kids. I gotta go back and give that game another fair shake, because, retrospect and all that, but yeah, it is undeniable that the Dreamcast definitely left a massive footprint on the entire industry. I mean, who's to say, Xbox Live would have even existed, at least in the way that it did, without the way Sega was handling online play at the time.
Yeah, it proved that it was viable. And if Sega hadn't done that, I doubt Microsoft executives would be like this is the future. Something had to come first for it to really explode. And yeah, online was part of it. Even GameCube's design feels like it was designed around the Dreamcast, because they're both cubes in some way. GameCube's more of a proper cube, but the actual console design is really similar. And then, as you say, Xbox had a lot of Sega games. There was Jet Set Radio Future, Panzer Dragoon Auto, Outrun 2, Shenmue 2.
Outrun 2, and I know PS2 had that one as well, but like Outrun 2006 is, I personally feel, one of the most pure video games ever made.
Oh, absolutely. I played that at an arcade recently as well, and that was such a vibe.
Oh, I am dying to find an arcade cabinet of that, because I would love to play it on a machine.
Yeah. Monkey Ball is also very Dreamcasty.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see an official port of that, because I think the arcade machine was active during Dreamcast's life.
Did that? Oh, did we never get a Monkey Ball game on the Dreamcast?
No, there was Monkey Ball Arcade, and then there was Super Monkey Ball on GameCube. I'm pretty sure Dreamcast was left in the dust.
You know what? I think you're right. I think I just always kind of assumed.
It feels like there should be.
Yeah, because you're right. That is another just very Dreamcast game. It fits that arcadey feel so well. You know, that does make me think. There was one game I discovered recently has one of the very few Dreamcast ports that I would argue is probably one of the lesser ones, depending on how you want to look at it. So, have you ever played, you might actually have more insight on this than I would, because I only heard about this recently, the Star Wars Racer game that tied into the Phantom Menace. It had a 64 and PC port when it first came out, and Game Boy Color if we want to count that. But it later got a Sega Dreamcast port that was based off of the arcade machine. And it has, it's in technical aspects like graphics and fidelity, everything like that, definitely a huge step up. It's also got like 4 tracks and like 4 racers you can play as, because it's based off the arcade machine and doesn't have all the full content of the other releases.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I knew of this game, but I didn't know how smaller it was. But yeah, I guess being based on the arcade doesn't always work in your favor.
I suppose not. I gotta like actually, because I've got the 64 version. I need to compare the two of them together, but I just haven't come across a like complete copy of the Dreamcast version in the wild yet. Hey, this is Wayne from the Editing Corner. I just wanted to go ahead and issue a little correction here. This is actually not the case for the Dreamcast port of Star Wars Racer. There are a couple of unlockable characters in the Nintendo 64 version that were only available through a cheat code input that is not available on the Dreamcast version. But outside of that, the tracks and the racers are all still available. What I was thinking of and what I was confusing with the Dreamcast version is, in fact, the arcade version, which had a much more limited amount of tracks and racers available, but the Dreamcast version does have the majority of the content of the 64 version and plays and looks better to boot. So, you know what? Another win for the Dreamcast. But it does kind of go back to what John and I were saying about doing your proper research and making sure that you got your facts straight. Okay, back to the show.
Speaking of multiple platforms a sec, have you played any Bleem stuff?
Bleem? I can't say that I have. A Bleem.
So Bleem, back in the day on Dreamcast, they were selling PS1 games on Dreamcast. So Bleem, they had an emulator that was working on the Dreamcast, and they're selling it at retail. And you'd get these boot discs. So I've got one on my shelf. It's a Gran Turismo 2 boot disc. And you put the Bleem Gran Turismo 2 in your Dreamcast, boot it up, and then replace the disc with the PlayStation 1 Gran Turismo 2. Huh. And it loads it at 480p at full speed. And this was in like 1999.
Yeah.
And this caused the spiral of emulation being legal. Because back then it used to be this big gray area, because no laws were made around emulation. But Bleem won the case against Sony and Sega, and made it so like as long as you aren't selling the game and it's just a boot disc, or as long as it's just an executable, you're not breaking the law. So Bleem somehow got away with selling Gran Turismo, and there was like Metal Gear Solid ones. They didn't do that many boot discs, but the actual court costs threw them out of business anyway. So they won the case, but they spent so much money legally I guess Sega and Sony just kind of spent them out of business.
Oh, sure.
But they made emulation legal.
Huh, that's actually fascinating. It's interesting, too. I would love to see a version of Metal Gear Solid for the Dreamcast, if someone's able to put that together in a way that it utilizes the functions that the Japanese version of that game, I think, had some utility with the Pocket Station, but if you could kind of translate that into working with the VMU, you know what I mean?
Are you thinking the codec calls on the VMU?
Yeah!
That'd be really cool.
yeah. Because, like, the Pocket Station, like, was, just a stone's toss away from the VMU idea. And I feel like it would be fun to see more games kind of, like, carry over some of that stuff. That is interesting, though. I've definitely heard the name Bleem before, but I didn't know about all that.
Yeah, I forget all the games they did. They had originally they were going to give you a boot disc that could just work with anything, but then they narrowed it down to a few games. It was Gran Turismo 2, Metal Gear, I think Twisted Metal might be another one. I can't remember the others. There's only a few, but but they somehow managed full-speed PlayStation emulation while the PlayStation was active on the Dreamcast, which is still really difficult to do today.
Yeah,
but they managed it back then.
God, it's the dedication of the people that get this stuff up and running has always been commendable, but like especially for that time period and like the limited resources the layman would have just to work with at their own home, you know what I mean? That's wild.
Yeah. Did you try the Grand Theft Auto 3 Dreamcast homebrew port?
Oh, I am dying to. I would love to give that a shot. Is that finished?
It's not finished,
Okay.
but they've released a version of it. And there's some performance issues, but it's crazy how well it runs, though. So if you run into an NPC, like if you just run over a civilian, it pauses for like a little bit. But otherwise, it's just GTA 3. It's just GTA 3 running at a slightly lower frame rate. But they're still working it out. They're still going to optimize it. But you can play the entire game right now.
Oh, man, that's so cool.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think this was on the table for Dreamcast originally, but it was probably cancelled because of Sega pulling the system. But this was originally planned by Rockstar to be on Dreamcast and PS2.
Oh man, yeah, I can definitely see them trying to get that out onto the Dreamcast at the time. Another like outlier thing. I've actually probably never played more than like 30 minutes of any given GTA game. The games have never particularly called to me. I don't have anything against them. But GTA 3 is the one that has been in the back of my mind where I'm like, if I'm going to give like one of these a shot at some point, GTA 3 altered the industry. Like nothing was the same after that game came out. Like that is the one that I want to play the most. That and everybody really seems to like San Andreas, so I'll definitely play that one at some point too.
Yeah. Three is so historically important, yeah. They definitely refine it as it goes on. Vice City is my personal favorite one. But yeah, San Andreas is incredible too. But yeah, 3 was so huge for the industry. Just this seamless game. Dreamcast kind of did that with Shenmue a little bit, but they were loading screens. It wasn't entirely seamless. So it's wild that not only did it pull off Shenmue, but it can also, given enough push, do GTA.
Oh yeah, yeah. I guess we probably only got like about a half hour left, give or take. A question I was actually kind of hoping to ask you, especially since hey, we're on the topic of like people being able to bring over games that never made it over to the Dreamcast, and we're still seeing it work to this day. Something that's definitely been on my mind more and more is wanting to do research on porting and how getting specific games that were not designed for a piece of hardware working on that piece of hardware. It's nice when things seem to be as easy as like one of the more uplifting news stories around the Switch 2 has been CD Projekt Red had a playable version of Cyberpunk 2077 for the Switch 2 in 7 weeks, which is wild. Is there a game, like a dream game, or maybe a couple of games, that if you could choose to have a working Dreamcast port of it, what would it be?
So supporting any game from its previous console to the Dreamcast.
Yeah. It could even be a demake. It could be like sort of demaking like a game that came out years down the line, but like made to work on a Dreamcast.
Well, I guess it'd be interesting to see how some of Sega's later games would have been on the Dreamcast. So I'd love to see Monkey Ball on there. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see if Outrun 2 would have been remotely possible on there.
That was going to be my answer. Was 2006.
Oh, I want to give a more exciting answer than just more Sega stuff, but those are the ones that come to mind immediately. I'm just looking at my shelf right now, trying to get inspiration. You know what? I don't think this might have been out of the realm, but Prince of Persia would have been interesting too. Sands of Time.
You know what? No, you were totally right. That would have been really cool to see working on that.
Yeah, because Dreamcast wasn't that far off PS2. There's a bit of a gulf between them, but I think they probably could have managed it.
Yeah. I was originally going to say Outrun 2006 because that's just one of the most... that's like such a Sega game, and it just feels like a bit of a robbery that we never got a version of that game running on a Sega system.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. You know what else? This would be probably impossible, but if there was a way to do it, I would love to see what Bomb Rush Cyberpunk would, if there was any possible way to get that running on a Dreamcast.
I would absolutely adore that. That would be amazing.
I love that game to pieces. I feel like it understood the assignment down to the letter, and it feels like a Dreamcast game, but it feels like it understood not just how to emulate like what Jet Set Radio did. It understood what Jet Set Radio was and what it was pulling from, the culture that it was representing. So it felt more authentic because it wasn't just trying to be Jet Set Radio, it was trying to pay respect to the same things that Jet Set Radio did.
Exactly. Yeah, man. That would be remarkable to see. I'd love to see Sonic Generations be interesting. Just entirely like looking like Sonic Adventure. So like all the models are just those Sonic Adventure models.
Yeah.
That you take. We had like Green Hill and Adventure 2 as like the bonus level, but let's get like all those levels just demade in chunky Dreamcast style. I think that would look really nice.
On a similar level, I've actually always wanted to see what Sonic Mania would look like running on a Saturn.
Oh yeah, it's basically, it looks like a Saturn game.
Yeah. I think Nick once described that as essentially like the Saturn Sonic game they never made.
Yeah, it's just smoother 16-bit looking Sonic, but with these quite complex backgrounds.
Yeah. I feel like that would be really cool to see. I love stuff like that. Saturn is another system that there's just like there were so many games I would have loved to see how that would run. One of them that a friend and I were talking about would be so cool to see working on the Saturn was the original Silent Hill.
Oh yeah. What was that a Bleem game? Let me double check this real quick.
Oh, brother, let's if it see. Is.
Let's see if it is. So let's see. Here's Bleem on the Sega Wiki. They had where's the actual game list? I don't know if they've got it. Oh, so it was just 3. It was Gran Turismo 2, Tekken 3, and Metal Gear Solid. So no Silent Hill.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like something about that, the style of that game. The first Silent Hill is actually my favorite. I think Silent Hill. I respect 2 and 3 more, and I probably hold them up as higher products. I consider them better games, but my favorite is the first one.
I might agree with that. I think 2 has a lot of really good messages, and 3 is beautiful, like technically stunning. But there's something about 1, just that vibe with the original doesn't quite get matched.
Yeah, and I think this is gonna sound odd. I think one of the things that sold it for me was the little fake blooper reel they make for it at the end when you beat it.
Sure.
There was something about that though, but it felt not so much like it was breaking character. It felt like it was more doubling down on how it felt like a David Lynch film. Like it was a movie production being made during that time period, and it felt like it captured that feeling very well. I think that's what I appreciated about that, and it just kind of changed how I looked back on the next playthrough of the first Silent Hill game. There's definitely like a tone to it that you just don't get quite anywhere else in the series, even if I do think that the other games are brilliant at what they do.
Yeah. I agree 100%. It's there's definitely a few like PS1 games that'll be interesting to see get native Dreamcast ports, because like we had like what was I thinking? I was gonna say Resident Evil 2, but I don't think Dreamcast did get Resident Evil 2. I think I'm making that up.
Yeah, it got Resident Evil 2. I'm still hunting
it did
it
get
down.
2.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. It did get 2. Yeah, you're right. And it had VMU support to show your ammo on the screen.
Yeah, it did. Oh, I've got 3 in Code Veronica, but 2 has eluded me because it's a lot of money and I've got my limits.
Yeah. It's cool though. Like you usually have to pause the game to see your ammo and see your health, but you just look down and it shows you like not only your ammo but also that little health meter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's rad.
And that's one of those things too, where it's like, oh, I would love to just aesthetically see what this game would look like running on this piece of tech, you know, and that's cool. But something like that is, no, it has like an actual functional difference that gives you something the other versions can't.
Exactly. Yeah. I guess another big thing about Dreamcast is there's 4 controller ports in the console, whereas like PlayStation and Saturn needed multi-taps.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of the go-to place for multiplayer, like just 4-person out of the box, online play. You know, it was just this. It didn't do anything wrong. Saturn just kind of did everything right, but it was still punished for it.
It wasn't your fault. I'm sure you've seen that Simpsons edit of Old Man Simpson, like just said, "Oh, Dreamcast, you were too beautiful for this world." Yeah. I will say, so this one is probably not one that would actually have like a technical difference. It's just that it would be cool to see. Xenogears. I wonder what that would be like running on like the Dreamcast.
The Dreamcast did lack RPGs. There weren't that many.
Yeah.
Had a lot of fighting games, a lot of platformers, not that many RPGs. It was just kind of like Skies of Arcadia and Evolution, and that was kind of it. And Grandia too.
Yeah. Which Evolution I gotta take another crack at some point. I guess it also had, Time Stalkers, but I've got that, but I haven't played it yet, and I don't think the reviews were very high on that one.
Yeah, I've not played that one either. I kind of want to though. just play another Dreamcast RPG.
Yeah,
but
just to see what it was.
Yeah, but yeah, Xenogears would have been really cool.
Yeah, I've been on a bit of a Xeno kick lately. I know that's not the discussion we're having here today, but the epilogue for the new ending that they gave to Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive got me thinking about the wider series a lot more recently, which I'm pretty sure was the intent.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
They keep squeezing Cosmos in with their little Bandai Namco references as well, so there's something going down.
Yeah, I can't say too much on that. This isn't the place for spoiling all of that, especially with how recent it is. But it would have been cool to have seen more RPGs on the Dreamcast, because especially PlayStation was getting a lot of them.
Oh yeah, PlayStation was a haven for RPGs.
Oh yeah.
The Dreamcast, I think, was kind of a haven for fighting games, though. It didn't have the best D-pad, didn't have the best analog stick, but you got Power Stone, you got Marvel vs. Capcom 2, you got Soul Calibur, you got Dead or Alive. It was just flooded in these things.
I remember seeing the teaser for that second Capcom Fighting Collection that's coming out, And it was exciting to see, oh, hey, they're bringing back the Power Stone games. And then I saw Project Justice on there. I was like, no way.
Yeah. It was wild.
Yeah. It's, I do think, though, that there were more RPGs released overseas. I think that they just, maybe there was a lack of confidence in how they would perform over here. But I want to say, like, the Sakura Wars games, again, like, those, I think, were just Japan exclusive.
There's one Japanese RPG that I need to play. It's have you heard of Sega Gaga?
I have heard of it. Yeah. The I don't know a lot about them, but I am familiar.
I don't know much about it either. But I said that I think in some video I said I'd love to play just a big Sega RPG. And apparently this is that. This is an RPG with just a bunch of Sega characters, like Sonic and Samba de Amigo and all the others. And there's a fan translation, so maybe one day. But yeah, it's super interesting.
Are you familiar with It's not necessarily like a turn-based RPG, but are you familiar with Silver?
I know Silver, but I've not played Silver.
Recently got myself a copy of that. That I remember. What I enjoy doing, and I got to do it again, is I like throwing on just a casual stream. Start playing some like demo discs and just kind of seeing whatever's on each of them. And one of them that I ran into was Silver. And it is a strange action RPG. It is formatted and plays in a way I've never seen before, but it's very unique and it's very interesting, and I would love to see more of what that game is about, although I get the feeling just from that demo that the story gets dark.
Yeah, that's definitely one on my list. There's a few games you've mentioned in this that are on my list.
Same for me. Like, there were a few that you brought up where I'm just like, no, I've been meaning to get to that.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have. There's a lot to eat.
For sure. And you wouldn't expect that with such a small lifespan. But no, it's just flooded with things.
Yeah. It's a cool system, and while it didn't have the same level of support a lot of consoles would get, especially for the time period it was actually available, I think it is fascinating and commendable how well the Dreamcast did for itself in the time that it had.
Absolutely. I'd be really interested to see how software sales were. I'm sure there's a few out there, but there's a lot of games on this thing. I'm just curious, like how well did they actually do?
Yeah, I guess I did have a question. Although I'm pretty sure this is one that you actually answered in a recent GVG video. Do you have a personal favorite Dreamcast game?
Oh, I think I probably did answer this in the GVG video, and I'm probably going to give you a different answer to what I said in that video.
Oh, I'm down, yeah.
It's hard to decide because it changes all the time. Let me see. What am I feeling today? There's a few that I really do love. I'm looking over at my shelf right now, so I'm trying to decide what my ultimate game is. I think it depends on the day. So sometimes it's as simple as Choo Choo Rocket, because I think Choo Choo Rocket is just the ultimate puzzle game, and it's so fun with 4 people. Mm-hmm. Other days it's Skies of Arcadia. I think it's one of just the coolest, most freeing RPGs I've ever played. Other days it's Crazy Taxi. It's just the easiest pick up and play game.
Oh yeah.
If I were to give you just one game though, I might just go with Choo Choo Rocket.
All right, that's a good answer. Yeah, Choo Choo Rocket is, again, it's a unique experience. It is a ton of fun to get people together for that, and I do think that it goes under the radar too often, considering like it did have an impact on the way games are developed now.
It needs a modern port. It's wild that we've gone through the Switch era. A system where you can take off a controller and have the perfect inputs for Choo Choo Rocket and nothing.
Yeah. I always personally thought it was a shame that we never got like a 3DS or DSi port of... I know there was a GBA version, and I think that there was a mobile game.
I think that's it. We had GBA mobile. There was an Apple Arcade game And this story's devastating because I didn't get a chance to play it, but it was delisted from the service, and because you can't buy Apple Arcade games because it's a subscription, it's just gone.
And I'm sure somebody out there has been wanting to try to preserve that. It can be difficult. There was a video I saw recently of a fan effort to preserve a Japan-exclusive mobile game based off the Xenosaga franchise that I had never heard of, and that only recently got dumped. So, never give up hope. It could be out there, but it is a shame when it's like such a simple concept. Like, release a $15, $20 game that's just like a fun multiplayer experience. Like people, I can see so many people just getting on stream to play with friends and stuff like that and having an absolute blast.
Yeah. So I went for Choo Choo Rocket. What are you feeling as your ultimate top Dreamcast game?
So, kind of similar answer to you, where it does change from time to time. Skies of Arcadia definitely leapt up. It just, not even for Dreamcast, just like one of my favorite games ever. That one is very special to me, and that one, I feel like I've never quite played an RPG like it. But, some days it will be Crazy Taxi, because that's the easiest thing in the world for me to just, throw on and have fun with for a bit. I do think it's a shame we never got Emergency Call Ambulance for the Dreamcast, but hey, what are you gonna do? I think if I had to choose one, it might be Jet Set Radio.
Oh, yeah, really good pick. I don't think we've really mentioned Jet Set Radio through this entire call.
Which is funny, because, it fits so much of, the attitude that the Dreamcast was famous for, but that's almost like a full discussion in and of itself, Jet Set Radio, that and Future, which I think deserves to be talked about more. They are important games, and it is kind of a missed opportunity, because it's looking like at a conference or something later this month they actually might finally show off the new Jet Set Radio game coming out.
I hope so. It's been so long since they first gave us that tease.
Well, I do definitely I recommend, especially if you're looking for games that are very emblematic of that nature. It sounds like you've played Bomb Rush Cyberpunk.
I have, yeah.
Yeah. I like that game a lot.
Yeah.
I would also recommend, if you're looking for something that looks more like the original Outrun, but plays more like Outrun 2, I would recommend an indie game called Slipstream.
Oh, okay.
That's a good one. That one I think hovers around $10 most of the time. Very easy to pick up and play. Very synth-wavy, and I love that game to death. So I highly recommend checking that one out.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at images now. I was gonna get this, and for some reason I didn't. I think it's left my consciousness. So now I've got to make it up for that.
Yeah, that's a good one. And do you have any suggestions just for me or for the audience?
Well, for indie games that kind of inspired by this era?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was let me find the actual title. Don't want to get it wrong. There was a game kind of similar to this. Let me just make sure I'm getting the actual name right. Bear with me. Oh yes, Victory Heat Rally. I was going to call it Victory Hot Rally. Victory Heat Rally. It's done by Sky Devil Palm and published by Playtonic. And it's got some of the heart of Outrun in there, but a little bit more drifty, in kind of like Mario Kart drifty. It's a bit nice mix of that those two styles, but a bit more of a distinct sort of Saturn-y flair to it, though.
Yeah, I've been meaning to check that one out. I've heard the soundtrack and it's phenomenal.
Oh yeah, the soundtrack's really, really good.
Yeah. So definitely Victory Heat Rally. Gotta throw that on and actually give that one a shot. Before we get going here today, John, do you have any particular projects, anything that you're currently working on that you've got going on over at GVG or personally that you would like to shout out and plug?
Well, we're very busy with Switch 2 stuff right now, but I did just pump out, well, it's not public yet, but it'll be going live soon, a video on the Virtual Boy. So my friend was kind enough to lend me his console, I've previously played it like through the 3DS emulator, but I got to play the actual hardware for the last few months, and I played through all of Wario Land Virtual Boy. I played through most of the library on that thing, and I actually quite like it. So this might be one of the only positive Virtual Boy videos on there.
Yeah, it's cool. I've been meaning to check out that 3DS emulator because, it never even occurred to me, but I think it was Andude was telling me that, you can actually emulate the 3D effect from the Virtual Boy on there very easily.
Exactly. Yeah, and the thing with Virtual Boy is when you look at screenshots for games, it just looks like a big blurred mess of red, right? But when you're seeing it in 3D, they become very distinct layers. So it actually doesn't look as bad as it seems. And that 3D effect, it's so close to what 3DS does, and it did it back in 1995.
Yeah.
So I am actually quite impressed by Virtual Boy, and I think there's some really good games on there. So yeah, this might be I know it's usually just the sea of people saying it gives you a headache and there's no games, but I think this might be the only video opposing that.
It's always good to kind of take the punching bags and kind of take a more positive light to it.
Yeah. Most consoles usually have some light in them.
Sure.
It's easy to look at them and say this was a commercial failure, but what does it have going for it outside of its history?
Yeah, of course. Well, I don't want to keep you. I do really, really appreciate you jumping on to have this discussion here today. I really enjoyed myself.
Hey, anytime. It was really fun. I'm always happy to talk about the Dreamcast or whatever else, so yeah, thanks for the invite.
All right. Well, thank you so much to everybody for listening, and we will see you next mission.